Hello, and thank you for joining us on Best Practices. My name is Steve Alexander. I'm head of growth at Anagram. I'm joined today by Dr. Brianna Rhue. She is an optometrist and the co-founder and CEO of Dr. Contact Lens. Hey, Dr. Rhue.
Hey, Steve. Please call me Brianna.
Will do, Brianna. Great to have you. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate the time, of course. I'm looking forward to having this conversation. But before we dive into best practices, tell me a little bit about your story. How did you get involved in eye care? Why optometry?
Yeah, so why optometry? I was that minus 250 kids. So in second grade, I was actually, my parents are both nearsighted on a trip to South Dakota to visit my grandparents, or my great grandparents, actually, because that's where my grandparents are from. And we were in the car, and I said, "Hey, Mom, look at that sheep over there." And she's like, "Well, this is awkward because that is not a sheep. That is a cow. So either something is really wrong with my child, or maybe she can't see." So ended up in my dad's friend's practice, who I grew up working for. Then from there, got contact lenses in third grade, changed my life because I was a dancer, cheerleader, gymnast, bouncing around. Glasses don't really fit into my lifestyle at that point. And just that's really when I became an optometrist. So then fell in love with the science part of it, but also the business side of it. So I really knew what I was getting into, that there was this big retail side to the medicine side. And I think that's what really has differentiated me, just knowing what I was looking for. So then went to Nova, did a residency at Bascom Palmer, where I ended up meeting my husband. I got two little ones, 9-year-old, 3-year-old, big advocate in the myopia management space, and then bought into a private practice. So I had a job lined up to go back to Colorado, actually, which is where I'm from. And I said, I bought a condo down in Florida right at the, in 2005 when everything was, excessively high, and then everything crashed right in 2009. So the condo wasn't worth anything. So fortunately, I held on to it. Still have it actually to this day. It's my Sex and the City apartment. And then my residency led me to the practice I ended up buying into, becoming a partner, and then buying him out. Now I have two wonderful associates that are with me. So we're a full 2-doctor practice. But again, I graduated right into that recession. Like I was making shit money, right? And had to work at a Costco every Saturday. And I did. I came out with an extensive amount of loans, just like everybody does, and didn't really let that hinder me from growing or that dream of wanting to own a private practice. And then Jen and I obviously founded Dr. Contact Lens. I was 9 months pregnant when that idea came to fruition. And here we are now as a vendor, private practice owner, myopia advocate, mom, wife, CEO, all the things. So that's kind of a little in a nutshell of the background.
Well, and that's kind of been my experience of knowing you for a couple of years. The way that I describe you internally is I think of Brianna, the stone cold badass. That when I think of you, the first time I think we met in person, you were 8 or 9 months pregnant. On the floor of Vision Expo, directing traffic at the Techify booth that you also started while Dr. Contact Lens was happening, while you were running your practice, while you already had a family. So you were doing these 30 things. And I was running my one booth and kind of overwhelmed. And I'm looking at you crushing it. So that's why one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation with you, and to segue into the topic, what I'd love to hear from you is best practices for being an entrepreneurial optometrist. There are tons of ODs that own their own practice, and there are tons of ODs that do so and would describe themselves as an entrepreneur. But I think there's a difference between giving yourself that name and living that life. And I'd love to hear some insights from you, and I'm sure hard-won insights from you on how to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so I always had that work for myself mentality, right? But that doesn't really define you as an entrepreneur, okay? The entrepreneurial side, and this comes down to my core values. So my core values to me are taking risk. Like, let me jump off of this cliff, throw me up as high as you can as a cheerleader, make sure that you catch me, right? There's trust that goes into that. Then my other one is joy, pure joy, not just like happy, bubbly, the Brianna that a lot of people realize, no, like that's not joy that I'm talking about. It's like that grateful, you can feel it, joy, like this brings me joy, things like this, right? Sharing journeys like this. And then my other one is personal freedom. So personal freedom to me, right? Yes, is coming and going as I want to, being in charge of my life, being in charge of my future, knowing that I can control it. And I think right now, especially with the hype of AI and how everything's going, right? Everyone's scared. Everyone's terrified. That excites me. That lights me up. Let's go, right? Because I still know at the end of the day, I can trust myself. That's the spirit of entrepreneurship. And it's dark. Like and you know this, Steve, there's really dark days where like, I don't know if I'm going to get out of this. But my dad owned a small business my whole life. They were furniture builders. My dad still is a furniture builder. And what you can realize here is this is where we get into like vision, mission, core values. My dad's vision, they ended up shutting that business down. Okay, they had this beautiful store, this beautiful shop, and I saw him close it down. And it was because his vision was never big enough. He was so scared. And he led with, not that he really led with that, I wouldn't say that, but it held him back because his vision wasn't big enough. Where if we reflect on Dr. Garmizo's vision, right? He started this practice, cold start, 1984, like no vision plan, no nothing. I mean, they made so much money in the 80s and 90s in Eyecare. It was just like, let me sell a contact lens for $400. And if you lose one, it's $400. Like, right. Oh my God, right? Different practice now. But his vision, it outlived him because he found me, right? And he had interviewed, Steve, 18 of my friends. Okay, when they walked into this practice and what he was paying at the time was all that he could pay. You're going to have to eat what you kill, right? And I was willing to do the work. I was picking up a paintbrush. I was going to BNI every Wednesday from 7 a.m. to 8:30. I did that for 8 years, right? Then, that's okay, look, thank you. Did that for 8 years, going to BNI. And I was building the practice underneath him because he wasn't going to feed me his patients, right? So as an associate, if you're an associate, dude, it's your job to get yourself busy. This isn't to be spoon-fed. What do you think you're getting paid to do? Yes, you're getting paid to see patients, but you're getting paid to bring them in. So this is about networking. So all of my friends didn't see a bigger vision for where this could be. The practice, Steve, was so ugly. Okay, it was like red and green Christmas colors. But what I saw was that he had the tech, that he had the vision. That's what he sold me on. That's why I joined the practice. That's why we became partners. That's why he stayed an extra year in our partnership. When it was time to leave, I made him stay another year, right? So as the entrepreneurial spirit comes in, you got two paths. It can either outlive you, that's true entrepreneurial spirit, or it dies with you. So you can be someone here where you have 1,000 people working for you, but as soon as you're gone, do they know what to do? Or that lives on like Steve Jobs. And I mean, you could name all of these people, right?
Of course, that's like the Ford Motor Company is still kicking, decades after Ford's gone. So for sure, there was a lot that you shared in there, and I think it's such a great story, and also a great encapsulation of who you are. Right, you came in to that interview. Not just wanting to present your best self to get the position, but also you were trying to find yourself a partner, right? You weren't just going to take a job that didn't align with what you wanted for your life. And I think that is such an underrated component of making these kinds of decisions. Like to your point, the kind of the preamble to it, you went to optometry school, you left with a bunch of loans and were really worried about how do I pay these down? How do I build up my life? And so many docs fresh out of school will take whatever job they can to do that first. And,
Don't
different times for sure. But, you come out
No,
of
it's
debt
not different
and these.
times. It's not different
Yeah,
times.
hit
It's
me,
a
hit me with
different,
that.
it's a different mindset. It's not different times. There's always most of these, Amazon started in the dot-com boom, right? Most of these successful companies or these successful, again, if you're going to be that entrepreneurial OD, okay, it's mindset. It's trusting that no matter what happens, you can make a really good wage. I know that I could go fill in wherever I wanted, make a quick couple $100 and be fine. Right? And so it's about leverage, understanding your leverage. I understood really, really early on. And I think this is just apparent to what my parents taught me about investing, about money, about how to look at money, how you treat money. Yes, I have to undo some of that stuff too. Okay. Don't get me wrong. This wasn't all like rainbows and butterflies. We all have our hardships, right? But it's a mindset. So my mindset was I always knew I wanted to own something. I always wanted to be in control of that. Yes, that comes with risk. That comes with being terrified. It comes when COVID shuts you down for 4 months. When I was the president of the association, and I was the first one to shut down, and people were looking at me like I was cuckoo. And then a week passes and everybody shut down, right? So it's that speed, but I didn't let anybody go like everybody else did because I keep cash, a really strict amount of cash in the bank, right? So it's about knowing how you're investing in yourself and trusting that you're doing that. Look at all the seeds I have planted, Steve. So when you graduate in your 20s, you don't know shit. Okay. Your 30s are your growing years. Your 40s, people start listening to. Your 50s, now you're giving back. And then your 60s is you really start giving back. So if you just look at the cycle of what that really is, I realized those 5 years right out of school, that year 5, okay, it comes real quick, guys. And that's your snowball year. So you're going to work for 5 years and then start giving your snowball year away to somebody else. Are you freaking kidding me? No.
That is such a valuable perspective. I think there's a lot that goes into kind of your perspective on it. You have this air of self-possession, right? Where throughout your journey, you understand who you are and you understand where you want to go and kind of build the road to get there as you're moving. Speaking for myself, for a long time, I had no idea who I was or what I wanted to be. I knew some stuff. I was good at talking.
I still don't know, Steve.
I mean, people are always in flux, but like I knew some stuff, right? I was good at talking and I managed to talk my way into positions I had no business getting when I was younger. Like I look back 10 years ago, 15 years ago that I was managing people and I was convinced that every idea I had was the best idea. And like looking back, and maybe some of them were fine, but a lot of them were just bad. But I'm persuasive and people were like, sure, let's do that. And man, I would have hated to work with me from back then. Yeah. But in developing and understanding like who you are today and the direction you'd like to go helps you at least aim in a direction. And you're absolutely right. I still don't know exactly who I am, and that's still in flux. So you got to have some room for flexibility. But if you build a structure for making decisions and build a safety net if something that you couldn't have predicted occurs, it makes it easier for you to generate that autonomy and leverage that autonomy that you've built for yourself. But I also think like kind of the flip side of that, and I'd love your take on this. I think what you've expressed a couple of times is there's taking a risk and the trust that takes, but also the desire for personal freedom and autonomy. And a lot of the folks who are going to be listening to this, a lot of the docs and practice owners that we work with on a regular basis are terrified of risk, extremely risk averse. And say they want autonomy, but more than they want a freedom to do something, they want the freedom to not be told something. And those are really different.
Those are two different things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've done a lot of work on this though, in being an optometrist, right? So patient care is one thing. Being a business owner is a totally separate thing. And they are two separate sides of your brain, right? So now being a rep, so where people, I really wish people would lean in, doctors would lean into their teams. I lean into my team all the time. Okay. And that what has enabled me to grow where I've wanted to grow, to now get down to a day and a half a week of patients so I can grow Dr. Contact Lens. And now I'm on the other side of the table where I'm a vendor. I'm a rep. And I don't use the doctor in those terms because I've never liked companies that get through the phone and, hey, it's Dr. Rhue, let me talk to Dr. Rhue. I hate that. Because me calling your practice in that instance, I'm not Dr. Rhue. I am a rep. So I play that line very close because I don't want to go over that line because I think too many people do. Yes, it gives you a sense of trust and whatever, but I want you to do the work that it takes on your end to make the transformation for your practice. How you do that is with reps. I built my practice by talking to the reps, letting the reps in. Guys, realize they are in 8 to 9 other practices that day alone before they're in yours. They know some stuff. And they are there to help you. They are there to build you. They are there to help your team understand things that you don't know. Right? When I figured out, like out of school, here I'm making freaking 80K, found out my contact lens rep was making like 120. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like I went into all this debt for you to be driving this car, have health insurance, car insurance, all these other things even paid for. All your stuff is just fun tickets. Right? Now I have to pay for all those stuff, plus pay this loan, plus like that's again, come in working Saturdays and Sundays for a while. But realizing how critical the circle of life, the circle of a practice, you take care of your team invests in the reps invest in you, so you can invest in your patients and the patients pay you. But you have to give your team, and that's why I wrote the iPitch book. You've got to give your team the tools to make decisions, because the number one thing, especially in this world right now with decision fatigue, look at how many decisions we have to make a day, Steve. It is massive. If you look back into the 80s and the 90s, business ran slow. You had time to make mistakes. It may feel right now you don't have time to make mistakes, and to be honest, you kind of don't. But we have tools to help you not make those critical mistakes. It's called books. It's called reading. It's called podcasts like this. So you can learn these tools and these systems really quickly. So with the iPitch book, what I figured out here in selling to optometrists, oh my God, guys, we are a bunch of tough cookies, dude. Get out of your own way, man. You're the bottleneck. Like, get your staff involved in these decisions. You don't know what they're doing. So for instance, if you look at it, here's my little blurb for Dr. Contact Lens. Go watch a team member order a pair of contact lenses or a box of contact lenses for a team member. They've got 4 different windows open. They're going to 4 different systems that are not integrated. You're having someone toggle back and forth between all these little things. You know why there's so many in contact lenses is because the way that you're doing it, you're cutting all the margin out by what you're paying your people, and you're not moving things by data, by efficiency. No one wants to do that. No one wants to do that. You're asking your team member to do more and more for not more money, by the way. Right. Go sit at your front desk. Could you do that for 8 hours? Because I guarantee you couldn't. So look for ways that you can put this in. Look for ways how you can make their lives easier. So with the book, okay, you have, and you said it, the risk, okay? We're going to bring back this to the risk. In optometry school, when you're in patient care, you can't take risks. You have to be clear, confident, concise. You can't take risks with the patient because you could get sued. Been there, done that. Story for another day. One of the reasons doctor contact lens exists. Then live to tell the tale. It's not a matter of if you get sued, it's a matter of when you get sued for how much in Florida. Highest malpractice association, right? But then on the business side, you have to take risk, but nobody told you how to do that where it doesn't look like risk. You do that by asking a subset of questions. So when a rep comes in and I'm in clinic mind, okay, I can't make a business decision. When I'm in business mind, I can't make a clinical decision. You got to flip it. You got to ask different questions. But it's now get to a decision, guys. It can be a yes is a decision. A no is a decision. A maybe is not a decision. So that's how you get this all together. So where you can find me, go find me on LinkedIn, tell you heard this on the podcast, and I will send you a book on the how.
Incredible. There's so much there. And I want to keep this brief out of respect for your time and respect for the listeners' time. We could talk about this forever because there's so much to be learned just as a matter of conversation to delineate. If you're a practice owner, OD, listening to this, to delineate between your clinical mind and your business mind and make decisions about different things using that construct will be so valuable for you. You should not be making business decisions based on clinic mind, and you should not be making clinical decisions based on the business. I think there's an inherent understanding that you're not making clinical decisions based on business mindset. I think like most OD owners know that already, but the inverse is unclear. The inverse doesn't typically go. So,
and a piece to that too, like the other, if you can really think about this for just a second, this will help you with it. Shark Tank. We're all familiar with Shark Tank. Who's in control in that pitch, Steve?
It's the sharks.
The sharks. Who's pitching to them all the time? Your reps are pitching to you. Steve and I are pitching to you right now. Your colleagues are pitching to you. Your 3-year-old's pitching to you. Okay? But that makes you the shark in Shark Tank. But now your patient, okay, to flip it, you're now pitching to the patient. Now the patient is the shark because you've got to get them on board with their care. See the flip?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, so it's super clear. It's what a useful analogy.
Floor, when you go into these exhibit halls, you can't go in problem solving. You have to go in problem finding. Go into the booth, right? Steve comes up, or you go up to Steve booth and you're like, Steve, how much is Anagram? And that's literally like a blow to your heart where you're like, this conversation's going to go nowhere because I can't spit enough value at you for you to even want to hear my pitch. But if I walked up to you and I was like, Steve, tell me about Anagram. Why did you start Anagram? What's the problem that it's solving? What's the investment? What's the onboarding look like? What does this really help me do? How does this look like if we're celebrating a year from now? What does it look like? Right? Because we all
completely
have
different mindset.
I have competitors in what I do. And I see practitioners not asking the right questions. Because if you would have asked the right questions, you would have gone with me, not this other one that's out now.
Right.
Good luck. But you didn't ask the right question.
So let me dial in on this. So the overarching topic here is best practices to be an entrepreneurial OD. And I think like number one with the bullet is learn how to ask good questions, and maybe 1A, learn how to find good sources. An ongoing frustration for me is, I think we're both part of the Facebook groups and whatever else. And like, there are questions that are posed like, hey, I'm looking for a new frame collection. And then people just respond. People just give answers. And like, you
look for the one that would fit what your question was because you didn't even ask the right question. So you did no service to anybody asking that question.
Right. And so there's two sides of it. Not only was the question wrong and sort of useless because it wasn't thoughtful enough, because like a new frame collection relative to what?
Do
Are you
what?
trying to like for women, for pricing, for like rimless performance sunglasses, like so many things that you could potentially ask to narrow it down, but equally bad is giving advice based on that question. How could you possibly answer that question with any kind of knowledge? Just throw out frames? What are you doing? So, and this
Yeah,
is like a
I don't
personal
know.
pet
It
peeve of
is.
mine.
It is a pet peeve of mine too. It's a pet peeve of mine too.
So
Yeah, we can do
in
better,
this like
guys.
we have to do better. Like
We
what a
have to
waste
do
of
better. Yeah.
everybody's time to ask questions. And then there's another element of this that you brought up earlier. A lot of folks that are vendors and have ODs on staff, or even started by an OD, will try to shortcut the line and say, hey, this is Dr. So and so with this product. Can I speak with your doctor? And the ethical implications of that are, I think, we can set aside, but it does happen either way. An important thing that I think a lot of ODs kind of fail to ask is, well, like, they're an OD, sure, but are they a good OD? Okay. If they're a good OD, are they a good business person? Okay. If they're a good OD and a good business person, do they have a good product? And a lot of that is just kind of taken as for granted when it should not be.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you come to that conclusion, so what I do again is cold calling, right? And again, I'm cold calling your practice is Brianna. It's not Dr. Rhue. So I call up Tamara at the front desk, answers. I've trained all of my staff to ask the questions. I make them do demos to bring it to me. So they are even in Dr. Contact Lens, in West Broward Eyecare. Guys, if you're depending on me as the leader to have all of the answers, we are completely effed. I don't know what I'm solving for in your case. So for instance, Robin was looking for a new billing company. And she went out because I teach them. If you got a problem, if you see something over and over again, you got to search for the solution. So this again is all feedback that you give people. So take these demos. It can't be on you. When are you going to do a demo? In between freaking lunch, eating your snacks, and then going to go back into patient care when you don't have time? No, put that on your office manager. Put that on your front desk. Let them do the demos. And then they can bring you the questions, and then you can decide together. I see us, guys, you're the bottleneck in all of this. Your growth is on the other side of you trusting your team, but giving them the tools to make those decisions. So what happened in the demo with Robin, I didn't even know she was doing it, right? And she's like, hey, doctor, you got to get on this to give them your credit card. I'm like, you have the credit card. She's like, it's cheaper, it's this. And I'm like, why are you wasting my time? I was actually pissed at the company because they had to get me on the phone for her to make a decision. Right? Because that's what they're used to. I was actually pissed that you waste my time after she did her due diligence, did her research, gave me the breakdown on what she was going to do. She already had my yes.
Well, this is probably a function, like I'm guessing at it because I don't know, but this is probably a function of the assumption made by that company. So few staff members in an optometric practice are empowered to make those kinds of decisions. And in some, like my guess is they've gotten burned before. Okay, great.
I know why it happened, but that should now become the norm. That should not be, that shouldn't be. Do you know what I'm saying?
You shouldn't be an outlier for having that perspective. That should be the norm, but you absolutely are the outlier in that way. Like you say, your staff. Listen, I'm here to raise your voice, right? This is an important thing for people to hear, and the pitch book also really important. But as you were talking about it, what I heard you say is that you train your staff to ask the right questions, to make these kinds of decisions, and you trust them to make those kinds of decisions. But speaking as somebody who's called a lot of practices and has spoken to a lot of front desk employees, what they've been trained to say is no.
But not even that, just the rudeness.
Oh my God.
Because you didn't even know that you said no to like a $2 million idea.
Right.
You weren't even open enough to, and granted, yes, we get a lot of sales calls. I'm not saying like take every pitch. You have to have a filter here, right? There has to be a strategy. Your strategy is your filter. Your strategy is your focus filter. What are you saying yes to? What are you saying no to? What does your quarterlies look like? Your quarter look like? What problem are you solving? Are we on a complete pause right now? And hey, call me back in 3 months.
Right.
But did you give yourself a day off to actually strategize on your whiteboard?
Yeah. Well, there's again, like a lot to.
Wait, do you have a whiteboard? Number one, go to Amazon, pause this, go to Amazon, put a whiteboard into your cart, get back there on Monday morning and put it on the wall.
Yeah, but there, I think the whiteboard as a useful metaphor for having an ongoing strategy is also really uncommon. Like that, one of the reasons I wanted to talk with you about specifically this is because so many ODs that I talk to own a business and run a business, but don't really own it. You know what I mean? They don't own it the way that you own it, and they don't delegate responsibilities the way that you're able to delegate responsibilities. And it starts at the beginning. It starts at understanding who you are, and it starts at understanding who and what you're looking for in your business. You hire people and you put them into positions where they do a good job in those positions, but then you can elevate them and give them something to stretch for, and you give them the space to both identify and solve problems. Where most practices, and you said it a couple of times, most practices, the owner is the bottleneck because they refuse to let anyone but them make a decision. And you also said, rightly, that you can't know everything. There isn't a circumstance where an OD owner can know all of the problems their staff is facing and know all of the solutions to all of those problems. It just doesn't happen. We need to stop pretending that's a thing.
Well, and this too, I think this would kind of be a good ending for it to wrap up the episode, but the smaller that you think, the more hats you will wear. The smaller that your team is, the more hats you have to wear. So yes, you're doing all the admin, you're doing all this thing, you're doing all the ordering, you're doing all this because you didn't take time to put in a process or a protocol. So like if we look at myopia management, right? How I've grown myopia management, it was a focus. It's a pillar of the practice. It goes into every conversation. I look at myself as a freaking salesperson, guys. I am. I'm always selling to every single patient that walks in. Look at it as providing solutions if you don't like the word sales, right? A great book, we just did a podcast on it, which is our Book Nerds podcast on To Sell is Human. Healthcare is about moving people. It's about them wanting to care. And Eyecare is at this precipice. We have like Optometry 1.0, which is selling glasses and contact lenses. Optometry 2.0 is selling eye care or doing eye care. And Optometry 3.0 is providing healthcare. Since COVID, since 2020, your exams have gotten longer because now you're a freaking therapist. You're dealing with myopia management. You're dealing with dry eye. You're dealing with all these other things that you got to sell. Right? So that how you stay efficient and effective is with how you are using your amazing technicians, how you're using your front desk staff. I hate the word using, but how you're incorporating them, because I'm really careful with words, right? Even my 3-year-old, he's like, Mommy, do I get to go to school today? Like, he was like, and he's like crying. He's like, do I get to go to school today? Right? I'm like, yeah, bud, you get to go to school.
Yeah.
So have to get to what you're hearing in this episode is years of me working on my mindset, years of me reading, years of me having conversations with Steve at the bar, going back to my hotel room and crying and trying to do it better the next day.
I like that you went back to your hotel room crying after talking to me at the bar. That's a... No. No, perfect guy. I'm a delight to talk to. For the record, for anyone listening, I am a delight to talk to. Don't let Brianna lead you astray.
That's not I went back laughing, but I'm just saying there are nights that I've gone back after getting beat up on that floor. Is this like,
yeah,
damn guys,
yeah,
we're all trying to help.
Honestly,
that's
the thing.
The situation.
There's a lot to be learned in this conversation, a lot for ODs, practice owners, to take away and think about, what are we doing when somebody calls to try and help our practice? If your front desk just flatly refuses to talk to anybody, that's not good. That doesn't allow you to grow or learn. And if your only opportunity to learn about the industry is the one time a year you go to a conference, and then when you go to a conference you're all locked up and you don't want to talk to anybody, well, what's the point? Why even go?
Yeah.
Like, what are you trying to do?
Why go?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You can get your CE in one arena.
Yeah.
But those conferences are for both. They're not just for the CE. Why your CE exists and why your CE is so inexpensive is because of the vendors. Again,
Right.
It's all about this cycle of life. You, again, if we bring it back, you're the shark in Shark Tank. So one of my favorite stories here is I've got my 3 frogs right here. Okay. So how my 3 frogs were born, this is called the Purple Frog Way. Okay. So I am 4 weeks postpartum with my second kid. We had to do IVF. We had to go through 2 full rounds. So anybody out there that's going through that, just listen to your body. We can probably do a whole other episode on all of us with old ovaries. I had my first one at 35, my second one at 39 and a half, almost 40. So it's done, right? And also built a business too in that time with husband.
Yeah, several businesses.
Right. Pickleball, yoga, still all that, reader. So the Purple Frog Way, I was walking outside. It was 9 o'clock at night. I was exhausted. Okay. Like 4 weeks after having my second. And Dr. Contact Lens we had just made the Inc. 5000 list as number 41 fastest growing company. We just made the list again for the 3rd time in a row, which is awesome. And then I was interviewing for a COO. So I had to learn what these C-suites were because, again, I didn't work in these corporations. Like, I graduated from optometry school, became that positional leader, right? Not a transformational leader. I just am a positional leader because that's where I paid to be. There's a difference, guys. Okay. So I'm interviewing the COO, very well known in the industry, actually. And he goes, Brianna, I don't burn bridges in this industry, but I burned one this night. He goes, you got to fire your sales team. You need to do this. You're going to be out of money in like 2.5 hours if you don't do. I mean, that's why I'm interviewing him, is I was in scale mode. I needed help. I had my practice. I had my 2 kids. I had all these things. He goes, do you ever walk in the morning and write down the 3 things you need to do that day? Oh my God. I exploded. Okay. Because here I'm sleep deprived. There was like no empathy. I couldn't really hear. So like when you're giving, not advice, like I don't want you to think of this as advice. Take what you're hearing and make it your own. Okay. So you're hearing a shared experience here. So I go, are you there was a lot of cussing here. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? 3 things? You think my list has 3 things? 3 things. What I don't need is a list of 3 things. What I need is a wife that's going to take care of all this stuff, take care of all this, take care of me as a human, right? You could just hear where I was, like, frustration wise. Yeah, that was kind of the last conversation we had for a long time. But it planted something in my head. And I was like, 3 things? What did he mean by 3 things? My list does not have 3 things on it. Like, I taking notes every like. So I was rereading the book Atomic Habits, and something triggered me in that book. And there's also the book, which is Eat the Frog or Swallow the Frog or something like that. So I kind of combined all 3 of these experiences into this. And I was like, is this what he maybe had meant? 3 things to move my business forward that day. Not just your never-ending to-do list, okay?
Right.
So the 3 frogs is, and everybody plays the game. This is an accountability game. So everybody has their 3 frogs on their desk at Dr. Contact Lens. If you become a Dr. Contact Lens practice and part of our community, you also get your frogs. Okay. So your 3 frogs, you write down 1 thing that will bring you or someone joy. So I get to move my frog because I love these kind of conversations, Steve. So you brought me joy. You didn't make me cry today.
All right.
1 hard thing.
Not yet.
one hard thing I need to do that day and one easy thing I need to do that day that'll move my business forward. And by the way, before I rolled this out, it took me 7 phone calls, 6 text messages, and 3 emails to get this guy back on the phone to, again, repair that bridge that I burnt and ask him if that's kind of what he meant. And I was like, do you kind of remember this conversation? He's like, do I remember the conversation? Of course I remember the conversation, bro. Like, no one is like, because I was like, Mama, like, you can, guys, I get angry too. Like, don't mess with me, man. So that's how that frog game was born. Was, yes, you do have this never ending to-do list. And that's a good thing, guys. When you do good work, guess what, Steve? It creates more work.
Right.
Right? But you have to, again, what lights you up? Where does your focus want to be? In clinic, mine is myopia management and scleral lenses. Yes, we just invested in a dry eye, and I just did an IPL before we got on this call. I also fit a little girl that was going to projected to be a -11. We're starting her on atropine, right? So do what lights you up. Realize your vision plans, however you're getting butts in the chair. That's what it counts. Are they the right butts? But you also have to get the butts out of your head, which is when I do this, that this will happen and this might happen, and right?
Yeah, there's a
where
ton.
You go.
Yeah. So again, like I would love to have this conversation forever because I think there's so much value in it. There are a couple of things that you mentioned that I want to, in summary, kind of bring up. You talked a couple of times about the risks of dreaming too small, and every time you brought it up, it reminded me of Marge Simpson. So I've been a Simpsons fan my whole life. When I was growing up, I never really listened to Marge because I was waiting for Homer or Bart to do something stupid or wild. But in like subsequent watches, Marge has this really kind of sad wisdom that I find really interesting. So there's something bad happened to her, and she said to her kids, she said, "Hey kids, aim low, aim so low that nobody cares if you succeed." And when I was thinking about people who dream small, right, that has to be their kind of approach, that like, if it doesn't matter if I do well, like maybe something good will happen, maybe it won't, but I won't take a huge risk. There's another quote, and I think it was from Neil Armstrong or an astronaut that said, like, shoot for the moon, and even if you miss, you'll hit the stars.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just like the fundamental difference of that kind of approach to anything, I think it's way better to aim high and not get quite as high as you aimed than to aim low and hit it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the underlying of this whole episode is even I am still playing too small. And that's the work I'm doing and have been doing really over the last couple of months. I've hired now amazing coaches. I've invested in that. I've invested in what I put in my brain. I've invested in what's on my LinkedIn feed. I've invested in where I'm learning at AI, where I'm speaking, conversations like this, who you're surrounding yourself with, right? It's just about leveling up. It's not a time to be scared. And I am, with everything going on, realize I have 2 young kids now too, right? If I give up now, what does that generation look like? Right. So it's no, dude, you're in it. You chose to be in this lifetime, man. Live it. Freaking live it. So that's my tagline is live your vision.
I love that. So thank you for all of the insights and the time here. As we wrap up this episode, the folks that are listening, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is my jam. So I'm over there on LinkedIn. Again, you can request a book. You can request there. And Steve, as we wrap up, what's your biggest takeaway from the last 40 minutes that we spent away? Like, what was your biggest takeaway here?
I so the three frogs story, the three frogs as an element, I think is really good, and the delineation between each of them. One big thing that brings you joy, that's one big thing that's difficult, and one big thing that's easy that moves you forward. I love that as a construct. In my head, I've always operated under, I think it's from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, big rocks, right?
Yeah.
Do the big rocks first, then the smaller rocks, then the pebbles, then the sand, then the water, and then you get the thing to be as full as it can be, right? But big rocks don't have a number associated with it. I think there's something tangible to having 3 things that you can physically move from one spot to another that will give you a sense of accomplishment that checking off a digital list just can't do.
Yeah. And they are mentally heavy frogs, man. I'm looking at them right now. They're like staring. Oh, wait, I did get to move already.
Brianna, thank you so much. I appreciate everything, and we look forward to chatting with you again. Thank you for listening to Best Practices.